In 1997, Apple had 90 days of cash left. 90 days before the company would have been completely gone. No iPhones, no MacBooks, no AirPods, no Apple Watch, none of it. The most valuable company in human history almost didn't exist. And the man who saved Apple was the same person they had fired 12 years earlier. This is the story of how Apple almost died and how one person brought it back from the edge of complete collapse. To understand how Apple almost went bankrupt, you need to understand what Apple was before Steve Jobs came back. Apple was founded in 1976 by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in a garage in California. They weren't just building computers, they were building a revolution. The Apple II became one of the first commercially successful personal computers in history. Then came the Macintosh in 1984, the first computer with a graphical interface that normal people could actually use. Apple was a phenomenon, a cultural movement. Steve Jobs wasn't just a CEO, he was a visionary who believed technology should be beautiful, simple, and human. But Steve Jobs was also difficult, obsessive, controlling, and in 1985, after a bitter internal power struggle, Apple's board fired him. The man who founded the company was thrown out of his own company. What happened next almost destroyed everything he built. After Steve Jobs left, Apple spent the next decade making every wrong decision possible. They released too many products, confusing products. At one point, Apple had over 40 different Mac models with names so similar nobody could tell them apart. Their software was outdated, their hardware was overpriced, and competitors, especially Microsoft with Windows 95, was eating them alive. Apple tried to survive by licensing their operating system to other companies to make Mac clones. It was a disaster. The clones just cannibalized Apple's own sales without bringing in new customers. By 1996, Apple was losing hundreds of millions of dollars every quarter. Their market share had collapsed from 16% to under 4%. Retailers were pulling Apple products off shelves. Employees were leaving. Investors had given up. Michael Dell, the founder of Dell Computers, was publicly asked what he would do if he ran Apple. His answer: shut it down and give the money back to shareholders. Apple was dying, and nobody inside the company had any idea how to stop it. Then came the moment that changed everything. In 1996, Apple made a desperate move. They acquired a company called Next for $427 million. Next was the computer company Steve Jobs had built after leaving Apple. The acquisition was supposed to be about getting Next's operating system, but it came with something far more valuable: Steve Jobs. Jobs came back first as an advisor, then in 1996 he was made interim CEO, and from that day he moved like a man who had been waiting 12 years for this moment. The first thing he did shocked everyone. He called Microsoft, Apple's biggest rival, and negotiated a $150 million investment from Bill Gates. Apple's own fans were furious. At a conference when Jobs announced the Microsoft deal, the audience booed, but Jobs didn't care. He needed the money and he needed the credibility. It was a brilliant move. Then he did something even more radical. He looked at Apple's entire product line, over 40 products, and cancelled most of them. He reduced Apple's entire lineup to just 4 products. His reasoning was simple. If Apple couldn't make 4 great products, making 40 mediocre products wasn't going to save the company. In 1998, Apple released the iMac, a computer that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. It came in colors. It had a transparent shell. It looked like it was from the future. The iMac sold 800,000 units in its first 139 days. Apple was profitable profitable again for the first time in years. But Jobs wasn't finished. He understood something most tech companies didn't, that the future wasn't just computers. It was everything in your life connected together. In 2001, Apple opened its first retail stores, something every analyst said was a terrible idea. Then they released the iPod, a device that put 1000 songs in your pocket. Then iTunes, which completely changed how the entire world bought music. Then in 2007, Jobs walked onto a stage and introduced the iPhone. The audience went crazy. The world changed that day. And Apple, the company that had 90 days of cash left in 1997, became the first company in history to reach $1 trillion evaluation in 2018. Now, most people tell this story as a story about Steve Jobs, about his genius, his vision, his leadership, and all of that is true. But here's the real reason that nobody talks about it. Apple didn't almost die because of bad luck. It almost died because it lost focus. It tried to be everything to everyone. It made products to compete with competitors instead of making products people actually wanted. It confused complexity with progress. What Jobs did wasn't magic. He just did the opposite. He simplified. He focused. He said no to almost everything so Apple could say yes to the things that actually mattered. The most important word in business isn't innovation. It isn't disruption. It's focus, and Apple almost had to die to learn that.